Hello to all my third-degree black belts. It's Beautiful Anonymous. 1 hour, one phone call, no names, no holds barred.
I'd rather go one-on-one. I think it'll be more fun, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me.
Hi, everybody. It's Chris Gethard, and if you're somebody who doesn't love an intro, you're going to want to skip about, 4 minutes? 4.5 minutes. That'll put you right towards the beginning. Thanks so much. Enjoy the call. Hi, everybody. Chris Gethard here, and I hope you're doing well. I hope the holidays are treating you right. I hope that you're feeling good. For those of us who live in areas that have finally gotten brutally cold this winter, I think I speak for all of us when I say it was kind of scary how long things stayed warm in the global warming sense, but also the cold can be both physically and emotionally crushing, and I hope that you're withstanding it. And most of all, I hope you're out there connecting with people, and that the holidays are a chance to connect with love on all different levels. And I know for some people they can be isolating and lonely, and I hope for those of you out there that you're finding ways to get through what can be a tough time for some people. And I mean that genuinely. It's a joy to see your feedback on all the dumb stuff that we've been doing lately. That call last week was really fun and super silly, and seeing people's opinions on keeping your clothes on at the nudist resort that you have rented out is eye-opening. A lot of people I saw saying this is one of my favorite episodes of all time. And names that I recognize too. I go on the Facebook group. I see, these are people who have been listening for years saying that it's one of their favorites. And I just have to tell you, that means so much to me. Means the world. Really and genuinely. To hear that there's people 6, 7, 8 years in on this project still going, this one is now one of my new favorites. Sit there, I go, man, right, because connecting with other humans doesn't get old, and I'm glad there's other people out there who feel the same way. This week's call is our monthly call from one of our Touchtone subscribers, beautifulanonymous.com. You can sign up for either there's a few different tiers. They're all pretty basic. Reminder, you get 20 to 30 minutes extra with each caller every single week. And if you're at that upper tier, you get follow-ups with past callers. We've got the Posh Perspective / Posh Liver Transplant caller. We're about to drop that if we haven't already. You also get once a month a phone number that is only given out to people at that tier, and this week is one of those calls. So hey, if you're motivated to be on the show and also throw in a couple bucks to support the project, even if you just subscribe for a couple months to take your chance on that, it is much appreciated. Also, we'll tell you that when we dropped the phone number, I gave everybody a big ol' update on what it's like owning a dog. And that's the only place I'm going to be that guy. All dog updates will exist behind the paywall. Some of you people have signed up because you're fans of the show. There's other people going, I don't know what's going to get me over the finish line. You think Gethard can't be manipulative? You think this guy out here can't play the game? You want to hear about what it's like for me to own a dog, pony up a couple bucks? Who knows how long that rule will last? I'll probably slip up from time to time. But I gave a pretty frank appraisal of the first 2 weeks of dog ownership back there behind the paywall for the Touchtone people. And they're the ones who get it thus far. Anyway, this week's call is great. Funny thing happened that has never happened before in the history of the show, where Andrea screened the calls, went to put the person through, person started talking. Andrea goes, it's not the person I screened, my bad. And it turned out the person we were about to put through hung up moments, like as Andrea was clicking the button to start the call, person hung up. So we're in there. But luckily for all of us, it happened because this call is so joyous, goes in many, many different directions. We talk sexting. We talk marriages that span continents. We talk a little bit of politics, but I think not so much that it gets exasperating or annoying. We talk jobs, we talk unions, we talk martial arts. It goes in many directions, and the vibes are good. For people signed up in the bonus content, I will tell you, there's one question about a stretch of, it leads into a pretty lengthy discussion about a stretch of this caller's life that she mentioned briefly and that we didn't quite get to in the call. but a really super fascinating look into a stretch around her college years that totally affected her opinions on community itself. That's wild and fascinating, and the type of thing I like to shout out, because some of the stuff happening behind the paywall is some of the best stuff we're doing right now. And for those of you who are so kind to sign up at beautifulanonymous.com, I hope you can hear it in my voice when I tell you, you are truly appreciated, and I mean that. Anyway, it's a joy to get to do this. Feel so lucky. Feel so lucky you're still a part of it. Enjoy the call.
Thank you for calling Beautiful Anonymous. A beeping noise will indicate when you are on the show with the host.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah. How's it going?
Not too bad. You ready for Thanksgiving?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. This will be the second year that I'm just going to a restaurant, though, so we're keeping life real easy.
We are also going to a restaurant. So I live far away from my parents and everything, and my parents don't usually travel for Thanksgiving. So I think the last Thanksgiving I had with them was 2015. So my husband is from mainland China, and we're going to go out to a hot pot place for dinner on Thanksgiving.
Wait, who's from mainland China?
My husband.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah, we are boring vegetarians, and it's usually just me, Hallie, and Cal, and then my mother-in-law, and she's not a vegetarian, and she wants turkey on Thanksgiving. Yeah. I get it, but we're not cooking a turkey for one person, so let's go out.
No. Yep. That makes sense.
That's cool. Now, can I be full disclosure about something?
Go ahead.
So Andrea's telling me that she didn't talk to you, that she always keeps an extra line open in case the person she screened dropped out. And this is the first time it's ever happened, that just as she went to patch that person through, that person hung up and that you were next up. And Andrea's now typing things to me like, I don't know who this is. I did not screen this person.
She did actually screen me. So I got through to the screening, and then it hung up.
And then you called back.
And then I just called back, and I was like, I'm just going to stay on the line and see if something happens.
See, kids, persistence pays off. Andrea's saying, oh, good. Everyone I talked to was great today. So that's awesome. But I'd see persistence pays off, everybody. Just as somebody else was about to get on, that person hung up, and you were then in the call slot. So this is meant to be.
Yes. I've been listening since the This American Life days, and I think I've only had one other time where I've managed to get the right timing for the call. Obviously, everybody will know this is a touch tone, so I could plan this one a little bit as opposed to just waiting for the Twitter submission, or Instagram or Facebook group. But
see, kids, persistence pays off, and so does being a touch tone subscriber at beautifulanonymous.com. I'm glad you got through. This one's meant to be. Whatever this one is, this is fate putting us together.
Yeah. I mean, Andrea asked me, what's there to talk about? It's like, man, there's so many different things depending on when you talk to me in my life in terms of like, what can we talk about today? I feel like if I really want to be tantalizing, I can tell you how I learned to speak conversationally fluent Korean by sexting.
By sexting? Yeah, we could talk about that.
Yes.
You became
I don't actually know that it's that.
That what?
What?
Finish your
sentence. I don't know that it's that long of a story.
Great.
But it's tantalizing.
Well, it always helps our numbers when we focus on sex stuff. So let's at least get it out there.
Yeah. Here to help the numbers out. So, I mean, the background here is that, like, I've always been a little bit of a language nerd. I grew up in a monolingual, just English-speaking family. And then when I was young, I started learning French in school. And then that flipped a few times. And then when I was in high school, I started learning Korean a little bit. And I also come from a evangelical Christian purity culture, sexual repression background. But I ended up getting kind of involved in using random chat. And I used it more so to learn and practice my Korean. But the people that are on random chat are not always the most wholesome of people. And I was getting a lot of attention. So I thought, this is kind of a good way. So, I just started sexting in Korean. And I got pretty good Korean out of that. I did have also Korean input outside of that. When I started college, I ended up doing some volunteer work in a lab, and the professor and all the grad students were Korean. And so I started conversing, and they're like, wow, you kind of have pretty good conversational skills. And I couldn't be like, yeah, that's because I'm sexting with people in Korean all the time. So I just kind of brushed over that part and yeah, no, I've just been learning from some online resources. But after a few years, I ended up going to South Korea, and everybody was like, wow, your Korean is really good. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm just, practicing with grad students. And I mean, the real answer is because I was sexting with people in Korean
now,
a lot.
Can I ask you a rude question, but I have to ask, and the joke is right there, but it's also a real question. You
go ahead.
Is there any, you're in Korea or you're speaking with native speakers who are going oh, you're pretty good, but it is the phrases you are best at are oh God, I'm so wet, or give it to me. Sexting phrases are specific things.
They are very specific things, and obviously I wasn't using those in the rest of my conversation. But as somebody who's not Korean and doesn't look Korean, while I was sexting with people, I also occasionally they'll ask who are you? What about you? They want to know what is this white person doing that is sexting back with me in Korean? And I mean, I definitely got the interest from people, for sure, being not Korean. But I mean, I also did, like I said, have the outside practice, but I think that helped me get sort of more of the natural nuance and flow just using Korean all the time. But I wasn't being asking my coworkers or friends come harder, faster, or anything like that.
Can we play a game as a thought experiment? Can you say some things in fluent Korean that are text phrases, and based on the tone, I'll see if I can guess the English translation based on how text and on how sexting usually goes. It doesn't have to be X-rated, but let's
10 years.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is a little bit ago, but and also I haven't used my Korean as much more recently. But let's see. 거기 만져. 내 가슴을 만져.
Okay, based on the tone of that, I'm going to guess that it's I want you so bad right now. I can't wait.
It is. This is so embarrassing. And I promise you, I'm not going to email you and tell you to take this down. I don't have that many people that listen to Beautiful Anonymous, unfortunately. But I said oh, yeah, just like that, touch my breast.
Amazing. Okay, round two.
빨리 사줘.
Harder, faster, don't stop.
Fast, come.
That was pretty close. The nonverbal communication side of it. The language of love knows no international barriers. Okay, final round.
Oh, it has been a long time since.
Well, you're Nelly. We can call the game there. Let's end it there. I'm putting too much pressure on you. This concludes the portion of Beautiful Anonymous where people who are fluent in Korean can hear two white people have basically choppy phone sex in a weird game, a weird ill-advised game. And I hope that none of that was too socially uncomfortable, and I hope that you are okay with all of it.
If I wasn't comfortable, I wouldn't have brought it up. Although I definitely will not play this episode for my parents.
Yeah, that's fair. Amazing job learning Korean via the most horny of possible means.
yeah, it's pretty fun to use. And I've had people like just straight up, it's one of those things you never expect, but somebody straight up just drop their jaw in terms of looking at me and like, wait, did that just come out of your mouth? Like fluent Korean? And I say this, I do feel like I have to add the caveat in there for any Korean speakers. It has been a while since I've used my Korean and it is a little bit rusty. So if my pronunciation isn't perfect, Korean speakers, I apologize. It has been better in the past.
I love that. I love that just happened. I love to hear that you can learn a language via such means. I feel like it lets us know about you in some ways that are fascinating, and I think it's a hell of a way to kick off this call.
Yeah, so there's your tantalizing thing that you can add in there, the sex, to get people to come listen to the episode.
Well, that's good. That's good. We can just title the episode Korean Sex Talk, and it's going to get some extra clicks. We would see a bump off of that for sure. We would see a little numbers bump off of that. We'll see where else it goes and how cloying and desperate we want to be in the titling of the episode. Yeah. Incredible. What else should we speak about today?
So one time you put out a call for people that were working in the sciences, and I know that I called and left a voicemail at that time, and I don't remember exactly why or if you guys were clear why you were looking at the sciences, but I am an engineer. I work as a chemical engineer in a manufacturing environment, which is pretty interesting, like in terms of especially from like the political side, where like obviously you're very pro-union and I am left-wing pro-union, even though I'm not in a union as an engineer. But watching all of the union employees in my facility vote for Donald Trump was crazy.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, the unions really broke in a direction that was, but saw it coming.
Yeah.
And the more you read about like the shift in endorsements or lack of endorsements, unions sitting it out. And again, 2016 and 2024.
We're specifically part of the Teamsters.
Yeah, the Teamsters really broke.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating. It's disappointing. I do believe in liberal politics as protective of union members. I'm also very cognizant of the fact that I am a member of two unions that are entertainment unions, and that's a lot different than being on a manufacturing floor. But I do think at the very least it's become clear that the priorities and or messaging of the priorities of the Democratic Party are getting a real lack of confidence amongst working people, and it's heartbreaking to see. And this took a sad turn compared to Korean sexting.
It did. It took a very sad turn. But I mean, I think when I look at the election, I feel like there's so much made of it. I feel like a lot of people, it really was just about like prices are higher and not understanding that the president didn't have that much of an ability to affect that. And like it's not just the United States that's dealing from high prices. It's the entire world. And so people are like, I want cheaper XYZ. And they think the only way to do that is to change the power. That's what my kind of impression is. Because I mean, so we have 4 shifts and I had to go in for one of the night shifts to train them. And this is shortly after the election. And they were like, oh, it's going to be so much better. Like things are going to be so much cheaper. And I was like, y'all know that he's going to put tariffs on everything, right? And like anything that you want to buy is going to be more expensive. And they're like, well, I'm not going to buy a TV or a car in the next 4 years. I was like, okay. I mean, you do you.
And I will say too, and if it's okay with you, I don't want to focus on politics for too long just because my head will explode. But I do notice this.
That is fair.
Yeah, but I will say this. There's been a lot of talk about like the manosphere and Joe Rogan and UFC watchers and appealing to like white working class men and how the Democratic Party didn't do enough about that. And I'm like, there is something to be said there and something to be studied there. I'm not smart enough to speak to it. I will also say that my entire lifetime, I do notice that Democrats do tend to trot out people from the entertainment industry who are very clearly millionaires. Let's have singing artists who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You know, like I love Bruce Springsteen. I think Bruce Springsteen has a real connection to the working class. I also think Bruce Springsteen very publicly sold his back catalog for hundreds of millions of dollars a few years ago. You know, seeing rallies where it's, you know, artists in full makeup and gear and garb putting on a show, and you sit there, you go, these are millionaires dancing, telling me it's better for me to vote for these people versus like some guy who is into the UFC as much as I am, spending 3 hours going like, what's really going on? Now, I think that's dangerous. I think it's misguided. I think a lot of that manosphere stuff is at best poorly researched and at worst sometimes intentionally manipulated, but it was manipulated quite well. And I think we have to get past the era of the dancing millionaire as the people allying themselves with the Democratic Party. And I say that as someone in the entertainment industry, but also as someone who's opted to live, you know, near my roots in North Jersey instead of ever moving out to Los Angeles. Like the disconnect put on display from people who are just like, yeah, no, I used to buy one type of toilet paper. I used to buy 2-ply and now I buy single ply because it's of inflation. You sit there, you go, yeah, like some people are wiping their ass with toilet paper that's not as good as they used to. And that's real. And a dancing millionaire at a rally is not going to do anything except get an eye roll from somebody who's going, you know, we used to be able to go out to eat once a week as a family. We just don't do it anymore because things are too tenuous. Like what we don't need in that case is, a bunch of more visibly rich people or people whose vibe is of such telling us how they're the ones who are actually going to stop the rich people. It's eye-rolly. It's really eye-rolly and really disappointing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, for sure.
What does chemical engineering involve?
So actually, that's a good question because a lot of people think it's the same as chemistry. And the answer is they're actually not that close at all. In school, in terms of what you study, you do a lot more physics and a lot more math. And like, it's not that there's no chemistry, but there's a little bit. But the way that I like to explain it is the chemists will sit in their lab and like, let's say they make a new pharmacological drug. Or the new things that's going to cure cancer or whatever. They can make it at the scale where they can make like 100 grams, but it costs like $10,000. So if everybody wants that drug or needs that drug, you have to scale it up from the chemistry that they're doing in the lab to a large scale plant. And so chemical engineers are the people who get it to be large scale so everybody can access it, and also maintain plants that are actively running. So less chemistry than you think, a lot more physics and a lot more math than you think.
This is not too far away from what my father did in his career.
You said environmental engineering, if I remember?
My dad has a PhD in environmental science that he got right before he retired because he was obsessed with school.
Yeah.
He worked his way. He went to a state school. He graduated in 3 years, just working his ass off, working at an A&P supermarket. And then I just kind of watched this example that this guy set my whole life as I watched him. You know, he used to work at a company called Graver Chemicals when I was super young, and he'd come home and he'd stink like fish, and he'd have on like his work shirt and pants, and they'd be covered and stuff, and he'd smell so bad. And then eventually wound up working at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals and Shearing Plow, and did a lot of stuff that's not exactly what you're saying. I've never totally understood it, but a lot of it was like figuring out how to scale things up while still staying within like EPA and FDA laws that the American, like especially as a lot of pharmaceuticals started to be made either in Europe or in Puerto Rico, where the laws were, even with Puerto Rico being an American territory, like slightly different, making sure like, hey, are we making these up to a standard that will pass American tests, even if we're manufacturing them elsewhere? Which sounds like it's not too far away.
Yeah.
It was a very confusing career that I never totally understood, but I was very impressed at how hard he worked. Very impressed.
Yeah.
My dad worked his ass off.
Yeah. I mean, I like being in the field because I'm touching and seeing real things and real products. I don't work in the pharmacy side at all. My current company, we make coatings and adhesives, which really just means we make paint. So if you've used any paints on your wall, that could be primarily our product, although you won't know our name because we don't sell directly to customer. We sell to other companies that then sell to you. In my previous company, we made specialty plastics. A lot of them were in cars where you want to take out metal and replace it with plastic to lightweight the car so you get better fuel efficiency, but you need a special plastic that's going to be good enough for the temperatures or the sort of chemical conditions that are in your car. So
that's very nerdy in a way I love. Well, and you know what I like how you're describing it is like, cool, the chemists go off in a lab and they theorize about things and they have to be a little bit of like dreamers, and then they come up with stuff and go, this theoretically could change the game. And then it sounds like you get to have this very fun brainstorm of, cool, how do we take your theory and make it a practical reality? And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I did focus a little bit more on the scale up than I actually do. So I work in an existing facility, and so it's more like, hey, our pipe is plugged. What do we do? Hey, our pipe keeps plugging. Why does it keep plugging? That's a big part of it is that, or equipment breaking, or our level indicator in our tank broke, or isn't reading correctly, or the temperature loop is out of sync with things. So it's a lot more maintenance, but it's easier to explain the scale up part than like, now I'm just maintaining it at the large scale.
Yeah. So you're kind of like, it's kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. And you're like, why does the chocolate react to this particular venting system in a way that gums up the works? Let me figure out the chemical composition of this chocolate and the temperature of this pipe and why this machine is breaking down.
Yeah, a little bit. Less so like the chemical composition, although I'm using this as a real example. Like we do have a vent pipe that keeps plugging up and we're trying to figure out solutions for that one. And so we did have to analyze to be like, is this our product in here? Or is this one of the raw materials that's getting up there? Because it's not clear. That's the thing is when you go to visit a chemical factory, it's extremely boring because it's just a bunch of metal vessels that you can't see into and a bunch of pipes. And like, as a chemical engineer, it's very fascinating because I know what goes behind it, but an average person would be like, that's literally the most boring thing ever. And I think I was a little disappointed the first time that I went into a factory. But you can't see. And so it's like, when is it plugging? We don't necessarily have all of that information. So
I think it's rad. I think you sound like a big old nerd right now, but I love talking to enthusiastic nerds.
I'm absolutely a big old nerd, and somebody who liked math and physics, unlike you.
Yeah, my actual nightmare.
Yeah.
I do. Okay. Now, I want to combine two things we've talked about. A lot of people would look at somebody who chooses to live their life as a chemical engineer, helping to solve problems in the workflow of a paint industry factory, and go, that does not strike me as the same type of person that learns conversational Korean just to hook up.
I mean, people are multifaceted. So I would say there is a connection between Korean and more broadly language learning and my math side. So I saw a thing about like the people that make like the best language learners, and like you have to have good memory, you have to have good sort of logic math skills, you have to have some musical background, which based on all of our conversation, Chris, can you guess what instrument I played in high school?
Okay, chemical engineer. Also, person willing to learn a language just to hook up. Also indicative that you are someone who has a, okay, so this means you're nerdy on the surface, but you have a not that far under the surface wild side, and that you're willing to go way too far to pursue an idea that is probably outlandish, which makes me feel like you might have played, I'm thinking something in the marching band, and I'm thinking that this would fit. Not any sort of saxophone player. Perhaps a trombone. Did you play a trombone?
No.
Am I close? Is it in the brass instrument family?
No, you're not even close at all.
You were a drummer. You played quads. You played quads in the marching band. Snare.
Nope.
Not a drummer?
Nope.
No, drummers don't hide their freaky sides. Drummers wear their freak flags. Let's see. Were you sideline percussion in the marching band? Was it marching band at all?
It wasn't marching band at all.
Oh, not marching band. Oh, way off. Oh, you played viola. Has to be viola. Has to be. Let's pause right there. That's a cliffhanger. Everyone's going to want to know. Is it the viola? Viola? How do you say viola, right? I don't know. I never know. Anyway, we've got some ads, everybody. We'll be right back. Hello, ladies and germs, boys and girls. Guess who's back? The Grinch is back. The Grinch is here to ruin your Christmas season with Tis the Grinch Holiday Podcast. After last year, the Grinch has learned a thing or two about hosting a podcast, and he's ready to rant against Christmas cheer and roast his celebrity guests like chestnuts on an open fire. So you can listen with the whole family. This is family appropriate, everybody. And there's great guest stars too. John Hamm, Brittany Broski, Danny DeVito. They're all there trying to persuade the mean old Grinch that there is a lot to love about the insufferable holiday season. But that's not all. Somebody stole all the children of Whoville's letters to Santa, and everybody thinks the Grinch is responsible. It's a real Whoville whodunit. Can Cindy, Lou, and Max help clear the Grinch's name? Grab your hot cocoa and cozy slippers to find out. I know there's a lot of people out here with families listening to our show, looking for something for the whole family to enjoy. This is it. It's a really great show. Follow Tis the Grinch Holiday Podcast on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Unlock weekly Christmas mystery bonus content and listen to every episode ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Holidays are here. Things are exciting. You got people visiting. You got people dropping by. Family is coming. You're going out to destinations. There's gift exchanges happening. You're attending parties, seasonal outings. You're getting outside in the cold. Point being, your rhythm is thrown off, right? Your regular pace and flow are getting pushed and pulled. How are you going to unwind? How are you going to protect your sleep? Well, guess what? After long days of decorating, hosting, and celebrating, nothing feels better than a restful night's sleep. Got to prioritize this. And one way you're going to want to make that happen, go out there and get the softest, most luxurious sheets. Bowl and Branch's signature sheets are made with the finest 100% organic cotton and get softer with every single wash. These sheets will immediately change your sleep and bring you the dreamiest bedding experience. I love Bowl and Branch. I sleep underneath one of their waffle blankets myself, and they're not wrong. The more you break it in and the more you use their stuff, the better it gets. This waffle blanket weighs almost nothing. It provides really good warmth at night, but it also breathes in a way where I sit here and I go, how does a blanket this thin get this warm, but also breathe in a way where when I roll over, it's like pushing a reset button on the temperature. It's wild. And you can hear that that's real. Like, I honestly, scientifically don't quite understand how they nailed my blanket this hard. And if you're looking for something to treat yourself or you're looking for a good gift, I can tell you from me, and you guys know I don't mess around with this, 2 thumbs up from this guy. Bowl and Branch's products are no joke. High quality. Really high quality. And this claim of, man, the products get better the more you wash them. That's a very specific claim. Might throw people for a loop, but I can tell you, I know exactly what they're talking about because these things break in and just keep getting better and better. And I love it. Really good gift for yourself or a family member or Really great thing to have in the spare bedroom for house guests if you want to impress them. And if you're looking for something where you go, what's the exact thing that Gethard is saying? I can personally vouch for that waffle blanket, backwards and forwards. It rules. Bowl and Branch products are made differently, so you can sleep better at night. They're made from the finest 100% organic cotton on earth by artisans who earn the pay and respect they deserve. There's the signature hemmed sheet sets are out right now. There's designs and colors for every bedroom style and mattress size. They're breathable, unmatched softness. Keep getting softer when you wash them. You can try Bowl and Branch sheets with extended returns for the holiday season right now, by the way. Also, they have a signature gift box, which comes wrapped and ready. You get your sheets all wrapped up in a beautiful holiday gift box. Gorgeous packaging. It's going to make the holiday season even more special. Really, honestly, great gift out there. Gift you and your loved ones a better night's sleep with Bowl and Branch. And right now is their best offer of the entire year. Shop the cyber event and get 25% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bowlandbranch.com/beautiful. That's Bowl and Branch, BOLLANDBRANCH.com/beautiful. You will get 25% off, limited time only, exclusions apply. See site for details. You will love it, and it's an awesome gift. Don't miss out. Thanks to everybody who advertises on the show and allows it to happen. Now let's get back to the phone call. Oh, you played viola. Has to be viola. Has to be.
Close. So I started as a celloist in 6th grade. And then partway through, I started playing viola as well. But I have not played cello or viola since I graduated high school, other than my sister's wedding.
I played cello from 3rd grade through 10th grade. And I also present as very nerdy.
You also played cello.
But I also present as very nerdy. And then people realize I do have a sort of manic, fucked up, unpredictable side. So maybe there's something to cellists being the quiet freaks in this world.
I mean, definitely one of my other cello friends probably falls in that quiet freak. Some of the other ones, I don't know. I feel like they were kind of normal, but maybe that's just because I didn't know the freak part about them.
Need to hear this. Need to hear from people out there. If you are a cellist who presents as very straight-laced, but also has a weird side that you've fully embraced and gone for, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from these freaky cellists out there. I was just actually fiddling with my cello yesterday. The panic buy. I bought a cello as a panic purchase during the pandemic.
I think you've mentioned that on a podcast, right? It sounds familiar.
At some point, yeah. And then I've played it like 4 times in 4 years, but it's a really nice decoration to have in the corner of our family room.
Mine still sits in the case, so it doesn't look quite as nice as if I actually had it out on the stand.
Can you still read music?
I mean, I was never just that good at reading music, like sight reading or anything like that. If you put it in front of me and it was like a twinkle, twinkle little star, I could probably do that.
So listen, you can read music. You speak. How many languages did you speak? You mentioned before a few that you've fiddled with over the years.
So my language list goes, obviously I speak English fluently. The second best is Korean. The third best is Mandarin Chinese because of my in-laws who do not speak English at all. And then recently, like in high school, I self-studied Japanese, and now I'm kind of reliving those days, learning Japanese a little bit again. And then I took French in middle school all the way through elementary, middle, and high school. But I have not used French in a very long time. So
you're a polyglot. You qualify as a polyglot.
I mean, I feel a little hesitant to describe anything other than, like, my Korean is the closest to fluent. I'm not necessarily that ready for news, but I did an internship. So I studied abroad in South Korea and did an internship, and my boss didn't speak great English. And so I was a little bit in the professional world using my Korean. But that's why I say conversationally fluent as opposed to fluent. But none of the rest of them would I be like, oh, they're even close to fluent. I don't have that level of confidence. I feel like a lot of polyglots are like, I could have a 5-minute conversation and then I'm fluent. And I'm like,
So you're a borderline
I
polyglot.
can barely converse with my in-laws.
Borderline polyglot, but not quite there.
That probably makes me feel more comfortable, but it's definitely more than most Americans speak at all. So there is that part.
That's wild. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's talking, not realizing that you can understand them?
I have not been in that situation. I've always wanted to be in that situation. I'm like, I want to hear somebody like shit talking about me. Also, sorry, Sally. And I feel like people don't say that in the episodes that often, although she probably already tuned out from the first part of the conversation.
Every once in a while, she'll surprise me and be like, I listened to that one from Tuesday. It was very good. Good job. I'm like, oh, I had no idea you still listen. And she's like, I know more than you think I know. And I bet she'll listen to this one and go, I don't sound like that. And I'll go, yes, you do. Mom, if you're listening, that's what you sound like. Don't get mad at me about it.
But yeah, I've never been in the situation where I've heard somebody like shit talking about me and then be like, hey, I actually know what you're saying. So,
do you dream about it?
That is one of those things that people always talk about. And I was like, I can't tell you a time that that's happened. So
that would be such a dream.
Yeah.
Someday.
I mean, I've definitely overheard people's conversations and kind of been like, oh, I wonder what they're talking about. But like, it's not about me. They're just like talking about school and graduating and jobs and families and like nothing that I'm a part of where I'm going to be like, oh, hey, by the way, so this is not the same thing at all. But I did have this crazy experience one time at the airport that there was this guy in front of me and he was with two people and he kept showing his phone to them because he was like trying to translate. And I was like, I shouldn't say anything. My Chinese really isn't that good. And then they like get up to the front of the line to like check in and they flag down a person. It's like, do you speak Chinese? And the person was like, I got to get to my flight. Like my Chinese is not that good. And so I speak up from behind and I was like, I can speak a little bit of Chinese. And I guess they had just been released from ICE. And this guy was trying to help them get on the flights that they were supposed to or rebook flights. And I was like actually able to help them communicate with the guy who was like a volunteer helping them and the flight staff and get them at least situated as far as like they knew what gates to go to and their flight situation. So that was a cool instance where I was like, hey, I can use the language that you need right now.
That's cool. That feels great.
Yeah, I was really worried about like, ooh, I don't want to get in a situation where like they think that I'm better at the language than I am, but like we managed to. I knew enough, and they understood me well enough that it worked out. So I felt really cool about that.
How did you and your husband meet?
So I went to the same school as him, but I graduated before he did. And I was back at the campus and there's a app that Chinese people use to talk with people. And so I was like, I'm trying to practice Chinese and it has like talk with nearby people. So I had the nearby people function on and we just started talking and I was like, I just want to practice Chinese. And he was looking for a girlfriend and we talked for about 2 weeks and then we went on a date and a few months later, he moved in, and my parents also did not find out about that. And then we got married, like, within 2 years of that.
Wow, you moved fast.
So we've been together for over 4 now. Or we've been married for over 4 now.
So were your early flirtations in Chinese as you practiced?
A little bit. So I actually gave my wedding vows in Chinese.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. That's awesome. You do have a habit, though, of I'm going to learn another language to flirt with a person. Or I'm going to learn a language and utilize it towards flirting.
It's honestly a little bit the other way, where like you're like, oh, you learned Korean so that you get sex. And I was like, no, I just wanted to practice my Korean. And a really easy way to do that is men who want to talk to you, who wants to talk to you, really horny men.
Let's tell it like it is. I mean, I have a friend who would go multiple times, went on trips to, I believe, France, and would get on dating apps beforehand and say, I'm going to be in France from these dates. And she would just go on dates with local men and plan her vacations around this. And she's like, I get a lot of my meals bought for me. We're going on real dates. I'm not using them. If there's a vibe there, maybe we'll hook up, but I'm not making any promises. But yes, I use dating as a way to like see local spots, meet local people, get away from the tourist grid, and have a drink bought for me here or there, have a meal paid for here or there. Pretty genius.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, now that I am married and not looking for anything else, we are in a monogamous relationship. Language learning and language exchange apps are notorious for men looking to use it as a dating app. And so you will see in women's profiles, like, I'm not here to date. I'm literally just here to learn the language, please. And so, like, at the time when I was single, was like, I might as well use this to my advantage. If they want to talk to me, then, I can do that. And now it's like, no, sorry, I'm not interested in you. I'm literally just trying to practice this language that I want to learn. It's like, it's honestly a big problem in language learning apps for anybody who's not trying to use it as a dating app.
There is nothing shocking about the fact that you do a thing where you can stay even semi-anonymous and talk to other people, and horny men overrun it and make it feel predatory. There's zero things about that are shocking.
Yep.
You said your husband's from mainland China?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Have you been there?
So he came over here. I have been there twice. So I went when I was in high school. We did a sort of like go over there to teach English to middle schoolers. So we did Shanghai and Xi'an to actually visit places. And then we went to very small rural cities and did 1 week of English camp in one city, 1 week of English camp in another city. So that was my first time in China. At that point, I had been learning a little bit of Chinese. And then in 2019, I went over and saw his family, which it's really funny. So in my understanding as a white American of Chinese culture is if you meet the family, that's the like, hey, we're probably getting engaged point. Like that's kind of a big point in a relationship. And so I went over to China and I was like, his grandmother handed me a big giant wad of cash, which is the like, welcome to the family gift. And he was like, no, it's nothing. I was like, no, they think we're getting married. Like, this is what this means in your culture. And he insists that it was not that serious. And I was like, no, it pretty much was. I knew that when I said, hey, I'm willing to go visit your family in China. Like, I knew that was serious.
I was going to say, when someone flies from one continent to another to meet the family of a person they're dating, I'm shocked that he was surprised by this.
Yeah. Yeah. That part I don't know. I'm like, you have to know this. Like, this is, like, your grandma didn't hand me a wad of cash just to be like, thanks for visiting China. She was like, welcome to the family. Like, you have indicated that you are going to marry.
Now, I've never been to China, but as an American, you hear a lot about China. They are kind of the boogeyman of modern times. Not nearly as intense as the Soviet Union was when I was a kid, but closest we got right now is all these stories about the behavior of their government and cyber warfare and stealing our intellectual property and all these things that paint China as like I said, sort of a boogeyman right now. What's the reality like? What's the reality when you go there? Because it's one of those things where you realize the more you travel, the more you come to understand everywhere you go on Earth, people are just trying to live. And I want to know what you saw that reflects or does not reflect that.
I mean, obviously, I'm just like a normal American. I don't have any sort of high profile, so there's no reason that they're going to like trap me over there. And I don't know. and certainly like the CCP is not great and not perfect, but the other side of that is that doesn't automatically reflect over to the people. So like nobody in his family has been like, oh, you're not Chinese, like you're not welcome. Like his family loves me, his mom loves me, his dad loves me, his aunt, uncle, although they probably love me more if we had a kid, but that's how families are. Yeah, I don't know. They're people. I would say it is interesting. You have to register. So when you're staying as a tourist, you stay in hotels, and so you register your passport everywhere. But when I was staying at his family's house, we had to register at the local police department to be like, hey, there's a foreigner staying in the house. And that was a little bit of a pain in the butt because we went over to the local police district, and then they're like, oh, there's only one police officer that can do this, and he's not on duty right now. Come back at 10 p.m. So we went back at 10 p.m. and it's like, oh, he's not here right now. And then we waited like an hour for the guy to show up so that he could like register me. That one was really weird, but
yeah. I was, assuming it would be an answer of like, oh no, right, governments are governments and people are people, but you don't really feel that effect when you're on the ground there. And then to immediately hear like, oh no, you register with law enforcement as a foreigner upon landing. Like, oh yeah, no, oh, wow, that's more extreme than I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, what I also say, obviously, they took COVID measures a lot stricter. So I actually got married in 2020. We had a slightly bigger wedding in 2021 for friends and family to come. But I haven't been back to China since because I work full time and PTO is not that easy to get. But my husband went back 2022 to 2023. And when we originally booked his flight, it was... at that time, they were doing quarantine for 3 weeks. And so that means like you're locked in a hotel room. You cannot leave the hotel room. When you get your meals delivered to your hotel room, you have to suit up in one of those like big white, funny, alien suits to like pull your food. But like they leave the food. You wait 30 seconds before you grab your food. So it was 3 weeks when we booked the trip, and I was like, there's no way I have enough time for 3 weeks of quarantine, plus actually wanting to spend time with your family. And so when he got there, they decreased the quarantine down to 9 days. And so he did 9 days in a hotel and then went to his family's. And within 3 days, that was when China had decided, you know what, I don't think we can contain this COVID thing. We're just going to open free for all, and literally everybody in his entire family got COVID within a week of him having to quarantine for 9 days. So that was crazy.
Yeah, that's bad. I should ask you, how does I need to hear how flirting works in Chinese. Can I hear some Mandarin flirting? Being that you did flirt with your husband in Mandarin in the early days.
I feel like I'm not that good at flirting. I'll just tell you that we did come up with like little nicknames for each other. And the translation for pistachio, which is Kaixin Guo, is literally like the happiness nut. So like we call each other pistachio in Chinese.
So you call each other the happiness nuts.
Yes.
That is
that's the literal translation of pistachio.
That's very adorable to call your partner a happiness nut. I like it. I think you're pretty cool. Working on chemicals, working on the flow, getting these vents unclogged, getting these pipes functioning, learning languages, traveling the world. What else do I need to know? If there was ever a question that defines everything about this show, it's me just asking a simple, what else do I need to know? That is as broad as it gets, and that's kind of could just be the title of the entire podcast. Anyway, we've got some advertisers. We'll be right back. You have heard me talking about Delete Me and what a great service they provide, specifically because so much of your personal data is out there on the internet for anyone to see. We're talking about your name, contact info, home address, sometimes even your social security number gets out there, info on your family members. It's all being compiled by data brokers. They're selling your info online. They are making profit. It's wild. It's wild to think about. And as someone who exists publicly, and shares a lot of my opinions online. I shared a lot of my life online. I have had to become hyper aware of safety and security, and privacy matters to me more than ever. Obviously, I have a family now. I have eased back on being as public as I used to be, but still, when you see all the personal info that floats out there, it's scary. This data hangs out on the internet. It can have real, actual consequences in the real world, your life. And I'll tell you, I love Delete Me. It has helped me. It has given me peace of mind. It has protected my family. I actually recently gifted Delete Me and a subscription to their services to a friend of mine who has dealt with some stalking. And this is very true and very, very real. There's a young lady who I know, not even that well personally, but who I was aware that she's been dealing with some stuff, and helped arrange a Delete Me gift subscription to get to her to make sure that that info is protected. Because sometimes things get real in this world and you do what you can to help others. And Delete Me is out here providing that help. And to be able to help coordinate that was deeply meaningful to me. And you sit there, you go, man, we are lucky that services like this exist. You got to make sure that the people you know are safe, and Delete Me is helping keep everybody safe out there. It's why I personally recommend and use Delete Me. It's a subscription service that removes your personal info from hundreds of data brokers. You do not want people out here profiting off your data, putting your financial info at risk, your personal location, your family's safety. Protect your privacy with Delete Me. You can sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what info you want deleted. Their experts get to work from there. They send you these regular privacy reports. Those are fascinating. I have used other services like this, and I thought they were doing well. And then Delete Me came in and smoked them. Delete Me found many sites that the other services had missed, and I became an instant convert, and I really appreciate them. It's not just a one-time service. They stay working for you. They constantly monitor and remove the personal info you don't want out there. To put it simply, Delete Me does the hard work. They get you and your family's info off of these data broker websites. So take control of your data. Keep your private life private. Sign up for Delete Me now at a special discount for our listeners and their loved ones. Today, you can get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/beautiful. Use the promo code BEAUTIFUL at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/beautiful. Enter code BEAUTIFUL at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/beautiful. The code is BEAUTIFUL. We are in a time of year where sometimes you need to find a gift that can help a whole group of people. Sometimes you feel this with your family, especially if you're from a big family. It can be really difficult and expensive to buy every single person personal gift for the holidays. Put a lot of brain power into it. Takes a lot of time. But listen, why not get a gift that unites that entire group? Plan to celebrate the holidays with your friend group. Surprise them all with something a little bit more special and meaningful. This year, the perfect gift, Skylight Frames. I love Skylight Frames. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's really easy to use. You can set up a Skylight Frame in less than 1 minute. You can invite friends and family to easily share photos. There's a free Skylight mobile app. You don't have to have an account or subscription to use it. You can add photos straight from your phone, and they start showing up on the Skylight Frame, whether that's yours, whether that's a family member who lives all the way on the other side of the country. All these different people can opt in, and you can create your own little social network of photo sharing that goes on these really beautiful frames that you can hang on a wall or put on a stand that fit great on your mantle. And I know we all worry that when it's device driven like this, that it's going to look a little chintzy or cheap. No, these things look awesome, and they are a great fit on the mantle, and you are going to love it. It's going to look beautiful in your home. Displaying photos, by the way, HD resolution. You can choose. Go look at the website. There's 5 different frame styles. You can find something perfect for your home. Set it up in portrait mode or landscape mode, 10-inch or 15-inch frame. All sorts of ways to customize it to make it the best fit for your home. And as I mentioned, it's kind of like setting up a little private social media photo sharing site just for the people within your tight inner circle that are invited to be there. And it's really great. It's really great. I have these. My parents have these. My brother has one. My brother-in-law has one. We give them out to everybody. Make sure everybody stays connected and gets to add photos. And it's such a joy. And such a unique way to just remind yourself of the people out there who love you and are contributing and staying connected to you in this very modern way. Satisfaction is guaranteed. I'm confident you will love Skylight. Skylight offers free 120-day returns. There's over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews. It's available in over 30 countries. Skylight frames are recommended by the Today Show, Forbes, New York Magazine, and more. And now, as a special limited-time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/stories. That's skylightframe.com/stories. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/stories. Thanks again to all of our advertisers. Now, let's finish off the phone call. What else do I need to know?
I am a 3rd-degree black belt in a Japanese martial art called Kendo.
This is where
That's
you
a
fight
fun
with
fact.
sticks? Is that one with sticks or is that Kempo? Kendo sticks, right?
It's the one with sticks. It's
You do the
sticks
one. You do the martial art where you beat the shit out of each other with sticks.
Yep, that one. Mm-hmm.
How long you been doing the stick fighting?
So I technically started when I studied abroad, 2012 to 2013, and then I had a few years off, so like 8 years, I think, total. I just passed my 3rd degree in August this year. So, and I feel like you maybe have more insight from your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. 3rd degree, I say black belt. We don't use that terminology actually, but it's the best corollary for people to understand. But people can only really teach in the United States from the 4th degree and above. In Japan, it's like 6th degree and above. So 3rd degree is not actually like that high or that impressive within the community. But I don't know how that works for other people. If it's like black belt, wow. Because like 1st degree black belt for us is like you can get it within a year or two and like just means you can do the basics.
Are you familiar with the Filipino arts of eskrima and kali? I believe correct pronunciations. I could be wrong. Those are stick fighting martial arts as well.
I am not. Kendo is very niche and kind of insular, and I don't know. I feel like I have a little bit of a stick up my butt about it, where I'm like, it's different than the other martial arts. Like we're legitimate. Like the police in Japan train it, and so there's like a standard across everywhere, and like I don't know. So it's the only martial art that I've done, and so I do feel like it's more legitimate than other ones. But that's also because I haven't done any of them either.
Well, there is a thing in the martial arts world, right, where jiu-jitsu people like to say, "Oh, well, all fight. 90% of fights hit the ground. So ground fighting, this is knowing how to submit people on the ground." Is the most useful. And then Muay Thai, you sit here, you watch like UFC, you're like, oh, the people who know Muay Thai, that's clearly legit. And then there's others that people question. But once you involve a stick, it's kind of outside the rest of the conversation because you don't have MMA to go prove it. Like George St. Pierre trained in the type of karate and gets a lot of credit because he came in and was like, no, there's some karate that's kind of BS. And then there's some karate that really works. And I'm incorporating karate that really works into MMA, and that's sort of a testing ground for different martial arts to come and go. And you'll see stretches where it's like, oh, now a bunch of collegiate wrestlers are really showing how powerful wrestling is. Now here's judo people. There's people starting to use judo in MMA, and you see these things where you go, the ones that are legit find a way to show up, but you can't bring a stick into the octagon and beat the shit out of somebody.
I mean, I guess I'll say that I and anybody who does kendo for even the slightest period of time, this doesn't actually help you with any level of self-defense. It won't be useful in a fight. Like there's all of these metrics to it that are like not about being useful in a fight. So from that part, it's like completely the opposite of legit. Like,
so when you say it is
somebody
legit,
once asked me like,
what do you mean? Oh yeah, somebody asked you what? I'm interrupting because I'm getting excited about this. Sorry about that.
Well, somebody asked me once, like, oh, do you feel like kendo has made you better at like self-defense? And I was like, I can yell really loud now. So like if somebody came at me and I needed to like get help, I can yell really loud. But like other than that, like people joke like, oh, you have an umbrella. And I was like, literally nothing about what I do is going to like take down a defender. But I guess when I say legit, I'm talking more about like there's a philosophy behind it. And that it's standardized throughout the world. So like the people in Japan practicing are doing the same thing as us in the US. I'm going to say they're doing the same thing as in Korea, which is actually where I started. There's some slight differences and some kind of weird stuff with how Korea relates to Japan with Kendo, but like they fight together in the World Kendo Championships. So, but it just feels more, I think it's just in the end, it takes itself more seriously from the philosophy side than sometimes I feel like other ones do. There's a big hierarchy and history and like that kind of stuff. So
I did just Google Kendo just to see what it looks like. And it actually looks like, based on the training gear, just for Americans trying to conceptualize it, one thing I didn't expect to see, looks like it actually probably has more in common with fencing than it would like Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu as far as what you're actually practicing in a class. Is that true?
Yes, I would say that. Usually we describe it as Japanese fencing.
Well, yeah, and that starts to make sense of what you're saying, of like, oh, we're not trying to claim legitimacy in the same methodology that some of the other martial arts are. But when you compare it to fencing, you go, oh, yeah, there's a lot of people training fencing, and their goal is not to become sword masters who can defend themselves with swords. It's a different set of goals.
Yeah, but in the same point, because it is still from a martial art and a Japanese background, it really bothers me that people, so I moved to the Northeast 2 years ago, and all the people in my dojo here talk the word play Kendo. And I was like, it's not a sport. We don't play. This is like, we take this seriously. So I will just say like, do Kendo or do sparring, like those kinds of things. Practice Kendo. So there's like the philosophical element that doesn't exist in fencing as far as I'm aware, because there's a lot of things where like fencing, you just have to touch and you can get a point. Kendo, you have to have the voice with it. You have to have the right body posture. It has to touch the right part, and you have to have the right spirit to get a point. So like if you actually watch a match, you'll be like, they're hitting, and why is nobody getting points? Because it doesn't meet the basic qualifications for a point, which is not merely contact with an area.
This might be the nerdiest martial art I've heard of.
It honestly, it's pretty dang nerdy. So the people that stick around with it, we have a lot of engineers like me. We've got some doctors. I have a friend who's a locksmith.
You keep saying stick things. You've said stick up your butt, stick around. You keep saying stick, and I keep thinking of Kendo. Keep bringing up sticks, and it makes me giggle because stick around, stick up your butt, Kendo, stick.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
It was not intentional.
Now, here's a big question that I have, and I'm sure it's something you thought of. First of all, where did you grow up? What area of the States?
I have lived all over the United States. I was born in the Northwest, and then I moved to Appalachia, and then I moved to Florida. Then I went to school in the Mid-Atlantic, and then I went to more school that I failed out of in the South, and now I'm in the Northeast, which is where I specifically wanted to move to. I applied for jobs in the Northeast.
Now,
specifically for the snow.
You studied abroad in Korea, later learned Korean, and in fact sexted in Korean. You practiced a Japanese martial art. You married into a mainland China family. Is this all coincidence, or have you always been someone who likes Asia?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that I feel kind of awkward and weird about sometimes.
Yeah, I hate to bring it up in a blunt way, but I'm like, there is a running theme to this call that I'd be.
There is a running theme to the call, and starting in middle school, I would say, I was interested in Asia. But I would say like, I try and say it's a little bit more legitimate. It's not just like, oh, I like it generically. Like I do speak the different languages to some degree. And I have specific things that I have an interest or a connection to them, as opposed to just being like generically like Asia is a thing. There's specific touch points and specific interests.
What other, let's figure it out. Anime? Do you like anime?
I do. So it's actually funny. The reason that I started learning Korean was actually because I was like tired of people being like, oh, everybody who likes Japanese just does it because they want to watch anime. And like when I was in high school, I was like, they're the weebs and they're real weirdos. They're running around doing the Naruto run. And like, I am not one of those kids. Like, but I mean, in the end, like, yeah, I watch anime. I've enjoyed anime. And I mentioned like I'm learning Japanese again. And like a lot of that is because I'm just reading comics in Japanese.
The manga.
Yes, manga.
So, and just to be clear, that to make sure I heard you right, you learned Korean to prove that you weren't too obsessed with Japan.
I mean, so I was like started to be interested in Korean. I watched like a Japanese drama that was like half in Korean, and I was like, this is interesting. So I started learning Korean. The crazy thing is here, so everybody that's listening to the call and has gotten to this point is going to be like, Korean, well, you did that because of BTS. This is all pre-BTS. However, everybody was big K-pop fans. I started it before like K-pop was as big as it was. I'm not going to say K-pop wasn't a thing, because when I studied abroad there, all of the other exchange students pretty much were like, I'm going to this K-pop concert. I'm going to that K-pop concert. This was the year of Gangnam Style, by the way. And I was like, I'm not that interested in K-pop. Do I listen to it a little bit? Yeah, sure. Is it my entire life? No, I'm just going to go hang out with the Kendo Club and use my Korean. So I feel like I decided to stop learning Japanese so that I didn't look like a weeb. And then Korea news started happening. So everybody's like, you learn Korean because you really like K-pop, right? And I'm like, not really. That wasn't really why I did it. I actually was trying to get away from that stereotype. So
for anyone listening, manga, I mean, that's first of all amazing. I don't want to ignore what you just said. To feel like you were slightly ahead of the K-pop curve and then got sucked into it. I get it. Very funny. I mentioned manga before, which is Japanese comics, a genre known as manga. Are you someone who likes to read them in Japanese and not English translations?
I mean, so I read some in English translation because my Japanese isn't good for some of them, but like I specifically subscribe to a magazine called Dessert, and I get it shipped to me every month so that I can read a few series in Japanese as they come out immediately. And so I probably, I don't know, maybe 50-50, where some of it I read in Japanese and some of it I read in English.
How often are you practicing kendo these days?
Okay, so I said I got my 3rd degree black belt in August. And after that, I found out that I have a thing called Morton's neuroma in my foot. So I have not practiced kendo legitimately since August. I've tried a few practices by trying some things that my foot doctor told me to try. I got a cortisone shot 3 weeks ago in my foot. So normally I would tell you twice a week. One is a 1.5 hour practice, and the other is 2.5 hours. But right now the answer is not at all.
Oh, that sucks.
Unfortunately.
That sucks to have that taken away from you.
I have replaced my kendo, not replaced, added to it, but it's kind of replaced for right now since I can't do it. I've started learning to play hockey in the time that I can't do kendo.
Wait, you can't play kendo, but you play hockey?
Yeah, because so kendo is done with bare feet, so it's a lot worse for your feet. Whereas in the skate, you're like well supported. So my foot doctor was like, yep, you're good to do hockey. No problems with that. So you do need just something with some element of sport and violence at all times. Pretty pretty much. I made the joke when I started hockey. I was like, I'm actually not getting enough bruises from kendo, so I decided to start playing hockey. Although I do think I got more bruises from kendo than I will get playing hockey.
Who are you playing hockey with?
It's just a local women's league. So right now I'm just in their sort of learn to play league. But in less than 2 weeks, on December 9th, I have my first official game. So I'm really excited about that. For now, it's just been learning to skate and learning to handle the puck and everything.
Violence and sticks. If it's got violence and involves sticks, you're in.
Yep, pretty much. Although, to be honest, the violent part, like, so amateur hockey is called beer league, because the idea is that after you're done with the game, you go out and have a beer with the guys, except apparently in my women's hockey league, it's a bunch of hockey moms in their 40s and 50s, and I guess they don't have a beer after games, which is kind of disappointing. But there's no violence. If you start fighting, you're going to get thrown out of the league immediately. So
that's a bummer.
It's not actually as violent as the NHL is.
But you must fantasize about the idea that someone would try to pick a hockey fight for you, not knowing that you are a third-degree black belt master of the stick.
Sure.
You with a hockey stick in your hand is a lethal weapon, and they don't even know. They drop the gloves like an idiot, and you embrace the stick and go into kendo mode. Kendo on ice.
All I need to do is yell, and they'll be like, whoa, and they'll just back down.
Yeah, there you go. And they know you will touch them in the exact correct part of the body with that stick.
Yeah.
I love it. I hope you don't get hurt playing hockey. I mean, if I had something that, you know, we looked it up, it sounds like Morton's neuroma is a thickening of the nerves between your toes that cause pain and numbness.
Yep.
That sounds bad.
So it depends on, it's actually interesting. The size of the neuroma is not related to your pain, although mine is double the thickness of an average. So I think the average one is like 0.5, 0.6 millimeters, and mine is like 1.2 millimeters. But people can have large, small, and have no pain. The thing for me is people can have it in their daily life. I don't actually have any issues in my daily life. It's only once I start doing kendo, because you'll find a lot of people with Morton's neuroma are people who run because you are using your foot to propel your body forward. You do the same thing in kendo. You use your foot to propel your body forward. And I have a lot of inflammation and this Morton's neuroma thing going on. So I don't know how this is all going to progress, and I hope it is not the end of my kendo career.
Yeah, that would. How many? You've been doing kendo for like a decade, it sounds like, at least.
Yeah, I said 8 years before, but
years.
Also I started in 2012. So
yeah,
if you don't count my gap as that, like I started over a decade ago. Yep.
It's wild. You gotta, for a chemical engineer working in a boring environment all day, you got a pretty wild and varied life.
I mean, I'm definitely one of those people, like, so I ended my undergrad in chemical engineering, and after that I was like, what do I want to do after this? I could do graduate, like I'm a school-oriented person, so I was like, I'll do graduate school. And I was like, should I do a PhD in chemical engineering, or should I do it in Korean literature? I chose the PhD in chemical engineering only to leave the program with a master's degree partway through. But I'm a fan of I enjoy my job and I enjoy what I do, but it's not my life's existence and my passion. And I like doing things outside of it. And it pays pretty well to allow me to do things that are expensive, like hockey or traveling. So it works out for me.
I love it. And I have loved talking to you on this freewheeling, nerdy, Asian, horny conversation. Caller, thank you so much for calling and being so open and charming and taking us in so many directions from sexting to the martial arts, right on down the list. What a fun and funny conversation. Thank you for calling. Thank you to our producer, the High Priestess Andrea Quinn. Thank you to Shell Shag for our theme music. We have a voicemail line at 973-306-4676. We have an Instagram at Beautiful Anonymous Pod. And if you want to discuss the episodes, we have a really lovely Facebook group called Beautiful Anonymous The Community. There's about 35,000 people in there. Laid back, chill conversations about the episodes and other things related to the show. Join today. This week on Beautiful Anonymous Plus, here's some of what you'll get from the 5 questions. What does community mean to you?
Oh, that one's a hard one for me, Chris. So I mentioned kind of when I was talking about the whole sexting in Korean thing about coming from a religious, repressive background. And I ended up for a short period being in a very exclusive Christian community. I'm not going to drop the name. Some people might call them a cult. I still to this day don't want to say full-on cult or anything like that, but it had a very big community aspect to that. And it had a lot of particularly like younger people interacting with older people. And, you know, like you had people across the generations. And when I eventually was like, I don't actually think I believe this anymore and left the community, that has been heart-wrenching for me. And I've not found something to replace it.
Don't forget to sign up for Beautiful Anonymous Plus at beautifulanonymous.com.